Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Lucky Shots podcast. I'm Ricky Larson. Welcome back in week 6. It was a crazy week. A lot of upsets, actually, to be honest. A lot of games that you didn't expect to go certain ways, like the Bills on Monday night. Went down to the Titans. Kind of a shocker. So let's hop right in. We'll start off, who's got a bye this week, who's not playing. We have Buffalo who's going to be on a bye, the Chargers, the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Minnesota Vikings. All those teams are going to be on byes, not playing this week. Hop into last week just a little bit. You had the Jaguars. They got their first win against Tua and the Dolphins. Tua was back for that game. Couldn't get the job done. Jaguars get their first win, so congrats to them, and it was in London. Who knew, I did. I picked the Jaguars for that, so pretty cool to see. Then you had the Ravens. Maybe they're for real now. They took it to the Chargers. The Chargers looked terrible. The Ravens just beat them up. So hopefully they use their bye week, the Chargers do, to kind of recuperate after that shellacking by the Ravens. The Cardinals, just as good as we thought. They routed the Browns, looked real good. I think Kyler had 4 touchdowns, possibly. So they're looking good as ever, and still undefeated. Then you had the Cowboys barely scoop by the Patriots. That was actually a really good game as well. Had to go to overtime, and the Cowboys barely pulled it out. And then Monday night, Buffalo, 4th and inches, 20 seconds to go, decides, hey, let's go for it, try to play for the win, I guess. Didn't get it. Josh Allen tried to sneak, slipped down, Buffalo loses. Not really sure why you don't just kick a field goal there. I mean, yeah, you want to play for the win, yeah, you have a great team, but you had 20 seconds left. What were you going to do after that? I mean, because you got it, you have to take your last time out. Okay, you get maybe one more shot at the end zone before you need to kick the field goal. So, didn't really make any sense to me, but, they played aggressive, played a good game, but Derrick Henry and the Titans played fantastic. All right, so without further ado, let's hop into the Thursday night matchup. You got the 3-3 Broncos versus the 3-3 Browns. The Broncos, they lost last week to the Raiders, 34-24. That makes it 3 straight losses for them. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and now the Raiders. All 3 of those other teams that they have lost to are playing really well, playing good football. Congrats to the Raiders for being able to overcome all the drama that went on last week to go out and play really well against the Broncos. The Broncos just didn't look good, really. I mean, they haven't looked very good for these past 3 games. They kind of make it look a little closer with the score each one of these weeks, except for against the Ravens. But they honestly don't play well. They do a decent job of trying to catch up, but they haven't played well these last 3 games, and the only 3 games they played well in were against teams that are not very good. So, what do you expect from the Broncos in this game? Well, against a Browns defense that is stellar, not a lot. The Browns did lose to the Cardinals 37-14, which looks bad for their defense, but the Broncos defense is not the Broncos offense is not the the Arizona Cardinals offense. So I think the Browns defense is going to have a very good game again this coming week. But for the Browns, they have lost 2 straight, and in those 2 losses, they've allowed 84 points. Granted, they were two good teams, but this defense is very good. This Broncos offense still kind of struggling, Noah Fant do really well. But other than that, this offense, it needs to get going. And I don't think against the Browns they're going to be able to do that very well. Notably, though, for the Browns, they have Kareem Hunt, who sustained a calf injury this past week. Baker Mayfield, who's been having shoulder problems with his labrum, I believe it is. He kind of was shaky throughout that game. So he's got that shoulder injury to contend with. And then Odell Beckham Jr., he's got an AC joint problem. So those are three main players, along with Jarvis Landry already being out, that this offense, and, Nick Chubb was out last week as well. So this offense, possibly is going to have a tough time against an also good Denver defense. And if both their main running backs are out, their starting quarterback's out, a playmaking wide receiver is out, this could be a closer game than you would think. But again, I think their defense would be able to bail them out against a not very good Broncos team. But we'll just have to see. I like the Browns in that one. I'm a Broncos fan. I've been picking the Broncos. I've just got to stop. I think it's the Browns this week because of their defense, regardless of what their offense looks like. Then you got the Chiefs and the Titans to kick off your Sunday morning. The Chiefs won this past week 31-13 over Washington. Luckily, they turned it on in the second half because Washington actually was winning this game 13-10 going into halftime. And the Chiefs' offense did not look very good to begin with. But come out the second half, Travis Kelce starts getting really involved. Tyreek Hill finally got really involved. And then their backup running back, Darrell Williams, he played fantastic as well. So an overall very good effort, at least in the second half for this Chiefs offense. Patrick Mahomes, I believe he leads the league right now in interceptions. I believe he's got 8. So not what you're used to seeing from Patrick Mahomes. But if the second half of this past week's game is any indication, they should be all right. Then you had the Titans, who won last night. I think it was 34-31 against the Bills. They are now 4-2, so they're looking pretty good. A lot of that came from Derrick Henry, though. Derrick Henry, he had 140 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns, had a 70-some-odd yard run. I said if the Titans were going to have a chance in that game, Derrick Henry was going to have to take over. Well, guess what? Derrick Henry took over. And that entire offense played really well. They had Julio back. They had A.J. Brown back. So they had everybody back and fired on all cylinders and looked pretty good. No notable injuries really in this game. You still have Clyde, who is out. He's on IR. So, the way that the Titans played against the Bills, they have to be the favorite for this game, in my opinion. But the Chiefs are the Chiefs. We just don't know what to expect from them really this year so far. So, this one's kind of a toss-up. Could be the Chiefs if their offense is clicking everywhere. But that Titans team, Derrick Henry did really well. And that defense, actually, to be able to keep the offense in a game against a Buffalo offense that is insane, kudos to them for that. Moving on to Washington versus the Packers. Washington's 2-4. Packers are 5-1. Looking at Washington, they lost to the Chiefs last week. We just mentioned that, 31-13. Again, always talking about the anomaly of their defense. Their defense was really good last year. This year, they're 31st against the pass and only 19th against the run. And they are being outscored per game 31-22. I mean, I get that this offense has been kind of shaky because, Taylor Heineke is your backup quarterback and he's been playing for a while. Antonio Gibson, who, had to go in and out last week because of his shin. But I just don't understand why this defense is struggling as much as they are. You still have Chase Young. You still have, other playmakers. It's just not coming together for Washington so far. And now to go into Lambeau to play the Packers, who won 24-14 against the Bears last week. It was actually very funny. Rodgers ran into the end zone, scored a touchdown. told all the Bears fans, I still own you. So maybe that's an indication that he's going to stay in Green Bay. Who knows? But he wanted those Bears fans to know, I still got your guys' number. Speaking of Rodgers, he's got 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions this season. I believe 2 of those interceptions actually came in week 1, where it was that anomaly against the Saints where they just didn't have offense, apparently. They're looking very, very good. They did pretty much anything they wanted against the Bears. It was, 24-14. It looks pretty close, but if you watched the game, it wasn't really a ball game at all. So again, Washington's a team like Denver who's, trying to get stuff figured out. But again, I don't think this is the week that they're going to get that done against the Packers. You're playing the Packers at home. Packers coming off a big win against their biggest rival, the Bears. Aaron Rodgers playing really well. That whole offense is working in a unit. So I think the Packers, they got to be the favorites for that one. And again, Antonio Gibson, his shin. Who knows how that's going to go. So this Washington offense is going to depend on if he's in. They're going to look a little different than if he's out. So I guess we'll just see. J.D. McKissick would be plugging in for him there. He's a good pass-catching running back, but that would make them more pass-heavy. But I like the Packers in that one. Then you got the Bengals versus the Ravens. The Bengals are actually 4-2. They got to be one of the sneakier teams this season, sitting at 4-2, going against the Ravens, who are 5-1. Again, the Ravens, you have to just start respecting them. Sitting here at 5-1, playing the way they did last week against a then 4-1 Los Angeles Chargers, in a Chargers offense that, explodes all the time. The Ravens won, though, 34-6. And in these past 3 weeks, they're averaging 419 yards per game and 30 points per game. So this offense, it looks a lot different than it used to. It's not just Lamar Jackson running all the time. It's Lamar Jackson can actually throw the ball. Meaning there's receivers on that team that you never knew about. And then, Lamar's still running. Still making plays as he does. But if you look at the Bengals, they won last week 34-11 against the Lions. Their offense, over the span of all this season, are averaging 345 yards per game, and they're 9th overall in defense. Again, a sneaky team that you didn't expect to have this kind of season. You expected maybe some sort of success having Joe Burrow back, who, they drafted as their franchise guy. Jamar Chase, who Burrow played with, where, both those guys have that kind of camaraderie with each other already, that might, help how they play this season. But to be 4-2 in a division where you also have the Browns, who are 3-3, the Ravens, who are 5-1, this is going to be a big game deciding, who's at the top of this division early in the season. Whoever wins will have that top spot. So if you look at the Ravens, they do have Latavius Murray, who had an ankle injury last week, so you'll have to continually watch him, watch his progress, see how that develops over the week. But if he's not in, that's okay. They have Tyson Williams, Lamar Jackson's still their top runner, and this whole team is looking fantastic. If I had to choose, I don't know who I would choose in this one, to be honest. Bengals are looking really good. The Ravens are looking really good. Honestly, this should be the game of the week, in my opinion. It'll be a fun one to watch. Then we move on to a little less exciting game. You got the Panthers, who are 3-3, against the Giants, who are 1-5. The Panthers have lost 3 straight now. They were one of those 3-0 teams that has now fallen back to 500. Their 3 losses were to Dallas, Philadelphia, and Minnesota. Dallas, sure, they're 5-1, so that's a decent loss there. Philadelphia, you don't know how good they really are. They're always a toss-up team every week. And then Minnesota, I mean, can we call them good? I guess they're winning games. I mean, they have been very competitive, and we sit here and we talk about, if you lose to Minnesota, if you have a hard time beating Minnesota, you're not very good. You need to question how your team looks. Well, honestly, the Vikings aren't looking that bad. Past few weeks, they've really turned it on. The offense is on point. The defense is making plays. So the Panthers, they lost 34-28 in overtime. They had to come back in that game, which their offense coming back and having to drive all the way down the field to force overtime looked very good. For the rest of that game, Sam Darnold, he played a really good game. The problem was you had DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, everybody else dropping so many passes. And if there weren't so many drops, I think Carolina would have actually easily won this game. But so many drops, drive killers, and it took them all the way until the final drive of the game to really get it figured out, where they still had drops, but they overcame them, got down the field, scored a touchdown, got the 2-point conversion. Just sadly for them, the Vikings got the ball first, drove down the field. It was KJ Osborne. Heck of a play. And they ended up winning that game. But then you look at the Giants. They're 1-5. They lost last week to the Rams 38-11. Not really a shock there. I mean, what else did we expect against the Rams? The biggest problem with the Giants is they have 7 turnovers in the last 3 weeks. Daniel Jones did play in this game. Daniel Jones did throw 3 interceptions, and they also fumbled the ball once. So 7 turnovers in the last 3 weeks, but 4 of those came last week against the Rams. So they need to get that figured out. They don't have Saquon. Kadarius Toney, who finally looked great the week prior, this week goes out, hurts his ankle almost immediately, and he's going to be out for a while. I mean, you finally got Sterling Shepard back. Darius Slayton probably is closer to back than not. And Kenny Golladay, who knows? He's probably out for quite a while. He's Kenny Golladay. So it's going to be hard for them to figure it out, but they're going to have to lean on, Sterling Shepard. They're going to have to really count on Daniel Jones to be a leader and just make something happen. But it's going to be a tough road for the Giants, I think. And then Carolina, their players to watch out for, they had Alex Erickson and Terrence Marshall Jr. Both have concussions last week, so they're 2 guys that you're going to have to monitor throughout the week to figure out if they are playing. I mean, who really cares if they are? But Terrence Marshall is a piece of this offense that is involved. Who do I like? I like the Panthers, but after 3 straight losses, I think if there was any week for the Giants to somehow get back on track, this would be the week. You have a Panthers team that's really down, lost 3 in a row. I mean, it's a better chance than you had against the Rams. So we'll just have to see if they can pull that one off. Then we move on to the 2-3 Falcons against the 1-5 Dolphins. Falcons coming off of a bye, but this team kind of maybe trending up. You have Cordero Patterson, who really has been the star of this team so far. He has 173 rushing yards, a touchdown on the ground, 25 receptions for 295 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. And he is second on the team as a running back in receptions and receiving yards. take that for what it's worth, because they don't have a whole lot of a passing game, and most of it has gone through him. But over, over the whole season, Matt Ryan's got 1,300 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, and is completing 70% of his passes. So we like to kind of give the Falcons crap, but I think, especially in games like against the Dolphins, they're trending up. And against the Dolphins, who just lost to Jacksonville, they lost to Jacksonville 23-20 over in London for their 5th straight loss. I think this is really a good opportunity for the Falcons to bump themselves up to 500. It may be, not worth anything, but it can really help the confidence of your team to bump yourself up to 500 against a team, who had Tua last week, who had 351 total yards, 2 touchdowns, but had an interception, and has a defense that's 30th overall. So a very bad defense. This is a great opportunity for the Falcons to maybe right their ship and get something going this season. For the Dolphins, what do they have to do? I mean, play like you did against Jacksonville and you're going to lose, so do something else. Do something different than you've been doing for the past 5 weeks, where you have yet to win a game. It's got to be tough. Now we move on to the Jets and Patriots. This one might be interesting because the Jets are 1-4. The Patriots are 2-4. The Jets are coming off of a bye, but they're not doing too hot this season either. 22nd on defense, 31st on offense, and a -5 turnover differential. The way the Patriots played last week, the Jets are going to have to play a hell of a lot better and not give the ball away that much if they want to have a chance. They do have a chance. I mean, it's not like the Patriots are super good. They're 2-4. So, again, if you want to start getting something going, it's not too late yet. And against a team like the Patriots, who's 2-4, you have a chance to get moving. Then you got the Patriots, who lost 35-29 against the Cowboys last week. Again, looked very impressive. So if they can, play the Jets like they played the Cowboys, they will have no problem going out and making something happen. Because, again, they played the Cowboys tough. If you look back to the Buccaneers game, they played them very tough. So you know that team has it in them. So if they can play that way against a very weak Jets team, expect to see the Patriots rout them. But if the Patriots play down to the Jets like they have everybody else except for those two teams, then you could see the Jets sneak in here and get a win. And let's not forget, Jets beat the Titans. So Patriots aren't as good as the Titans, just saying. Then we got the Eagles, who are 2-4, against the Raiders, who are 4-2. The Eagles lost last week by 6 to the Buccaneers, but they looked very defeated in that game. When you look at it and you see, 28-22, that was the final score. This team looked like they were just walking through the motions for most of the game. They looked like they didn't even show up to play, and the Buccaneers pretty much walked all over them. Sure, they brought it close, but they just didn't look good, and they didn't look like they wanted to be there. So maybe it's just an attitude thing for them to kind of get something going. But they're really going to need to check their attitude, because the Raiders, they won 34-24 against the Broncos. They're 12th in offense and 11th on defense. So they are just across the board, dang near top 10 in everything. The way that they overcame all the drama from last week, it was very impressive. Now that all should be, farther behind them, less on their mind. against an Eagles team that's not very good. I think the Raiders can continue to do what they're doing. Last week I said I think they lost their magic. Maybe not. Maybe they still got a little bit left. So another game where if the team plays down, then we'll have a good game. If the Raiders play up to what they have played as, they should be fine against the Eagles. Then we got one that doesn't really need to be talked about. The 0-6 Lions against the 5-1 Rams. The Lions are the only winless team left. They lost last week to the Bengals. On average, they're outscored by at least 10 points a game. But at least they're pretty close in the turnover differential, only -1. But, I mean, they've had a couple of games this season where they've been close. They should have won. They honestly should have won against the Ravens. But against the Rams, who really haven't shown many weaknesses, they did lose to the Cardinals, but the Cardinals, we've just come to see, they're just a fantastic football team. So the Rams haven't really showed a weakness yet. They won last week, 38-11 against the Giants. They forced 4 turnovers, and on the season they're averaging 400 yards per game and 30 points per game and 400 yards per game. So this offense is clicking. I knew when Matt Stafford came in that this is what the offense was going to look like, and it was going to be a lot of fun to watch. And it hasn't disappointed. This defense, it's better than you would think. You look at all the teams that they've played, and they're really good teams, and they haven't been able to outscore the Rams in any week except for the Cardinals. So I think the Rams pretty easily take this one, but you never know. Maybe the Lions pull out some Jets magic and start calling the Rams the Titans. Who knows? Then you have the Bears against the Buccaneers. The Bears are 3-3. Bucs are 5-1. Bears coming off their loss 24-14 against the Packers. But where they really struggle is offense. Dead last in offense. They have a decent defense. They're ranked 8th there. But they are giving up 377 yards per game in all of their losses. Nearly 400 yards every time they lose. And when you have Justin Fields as your starting quarterback, who has 140 yards per game, only completes 53% of his passes, has a 1-to-1 touchdown to turnover differential, it's going to be kind of hard to keep up with 500 yards. But somehow, Fields is 2-2, sitting at 500 as a starter, but just nothing he does impresses me. I just think the Bears need to get rid of their coaching staff, bring in a good coaching staff, and then maybe Fields, can get behind that system better. Fields is having to try to do everything on his own because Matt Nagy hasn't made anything for him. So for the rest of this season, I don't know how I feel about the Bears. I don't think, especially in this game, I don't think it's going to be close. But you never know. The Packers only beat the Bears by 10 last week. Only. But this Buccaneers offense, they won 28-22 against the Eagles. Number 3 in total offense. But when you get over to the defensive side, they're number 1 against the run. But they are 27th against the pass. So, that being said, can Justin Fields maybe get something going? I doubt it. And then you have Tom Brady for the Buccaneers, who's first in pass yards, first in passing touchdowns. He's having another great season. I think, the Bears, if you wanted a week to kind of get back on the horse, it's not it. Then you have the Texans against the Cardinals, another one that probably isn't going to be that great of a game. You had the Texans lose 31-3 against the Colts. Texans are 29th in offense, 26th in defense, minus 3 turnover differential. Pair that up against the Cardinals, who just won 37-14 against the Browns. On average, outscored their opponents 31-19, outgained their opponents 413-353, and have a plus 5 turnover differential. I think this may be a point where they're up by maybe 40 at the half and start throwing in some backups. For fantasy managers, hopefully they don't do that. But the Cardinals, there should be no problem here. I have them actually ranked as the number 1 team in the NFL. Hard not to put them there when they are the only undefeated team. But that will conclude the Sunday games until Sunday night. Sunday night, we have the Colts at 2-4 against the 49ers, who are at 2-3. The Colts won last week, 31-3 against the Texans. They win their wins against opponents. How is this supposed to? Okay. So their 2 wins are against opponents who only have 2 wins combined. So haven't beat very great teams. But the week prior to this Texans win, they barely lost to the Ravens by a touchdown in overtime. So they looked very good. Jonathan Taylor in those last 2 games has 327 total yards and 4 touchdowns. So I think they found their recipe for success. Jonathan Taylor. He's doing well. That sets up their passing game. Carson Wentz hasn't looked terrible. So I think this offense needs to run through Jonathan Taylor, and they're going to start having a lot more success. Again, you run the ball to set up the passing game. If he's running like that, you're going to make the job a lot easier for Carson Wentz, who needs it to be as easy as possible. Then you have the 49ers, who came off a bye. They've lost 3 straight. They lost to the Packers by 2, the Seahawks by a touchdown, and the Cardinals by a touchdown. Trey Lance, who started for them, his first start was against the Cardinals. He went 15 for 29, 192 yards through the air, an interception, and 89 yards on the ground. No touchdowns for him, but, wasn't a terrible stat line. A lot better than, Fields, who had 140 yards and a 53% completion percentage. We'll have to see if Jimmy Garoppolo is back this week. But honestly, I think Trey Lance is better for this offense, better for a head coach who is very innovative. But I think this could be a very, very interesting game. I think both teams are going to play each other super hard. And it's going to come down to maybe, the last possession. That final quarter, I think, is going to be the more exciting of the entire game because it's going to be so close. If I had to choose somebody, again, this one's a toss-up. I couldn't tell you. I think the 49ers probably have a better defense, but the Colts defense is no joke either. So this one's going to be a real good one to watch. Man, I really want to try to give you a winner there, but I just couldn't. It's too close for me. And then we ended off with Monday night. We have the Saints at the Seahawks. The Saints are 3-2. The Seahawks are 2-4. The Saints had their bye last week. And they're again one of those very confusing teams. 28th on offense, but their defense only allows 18.2 points per game. You have Jameis Winston, who only has 890 yards through the air, but has 12 touchdowns. That's a lot of touchdowns for not a lot of passing yards. And Alvin Kamara, who got off to that slow start, only has 23 receptions, 113 yards on the ground, 113 through the air, 368 on the ground, and 4 total touchdowns. He finally had, a normal Alvin Kamara week before they went to the bye. So maybe this offense is starting to figure out Alvin Kamara is the guy. Give him the ball. And if they do that, I think they'll have a better time keeping up with the Seahawks, who lost to the Steelers this past week, 23-20 in overtime. With a backup quarterback, that is fantastic. You know, you have Wilson, who's out with his finger injury. Geno went in, was 23 of 32 for 209 yards and a touchdown. But as an entire offense, they only had 309 offensive yards compared to Pittsburgh's 345, which honestly isn't a huge discrepancy, which you see on that scoreboard. But, you know, the Saints apparently in games like this do really well. So I think you'd have to bet on the Saints here, but it's kind of another close one because you never know what Saints are going to show up, and you don't know how good the Seahawks may look with a second week of Geno Smith. Geno Smith isn't good, but this offense didn't do too bad last week with him. If I had to give you a winner, I think it would be the Saints. But again, it's another toss-up. Quite a few toss-ups this week. So make your best judgments. Look at, you know, their records. Look at, you know, maybe some popular poll picks who, you know, a majority of America is choosing. Maybe look up betting lines, see who's the favorite, and that can help make your decision a little easier. That's what I do. I put it in a little spreadsheet. You know, I've got the spread on there, the favorite, and then the popular pick, and, you know, kind of make a little bit of an educated guess from that. But we will finish today's show off with some power rankings. At number 1, the Arizona Cardinals. They're the only undefeated team left. Looking really good. Looking good against everybody. Then at number 2, the Baltimore Ravens. Also looking very good. And then at number 3, I still got to put Buffalo. I know that they lost last night. 4-2. Or lost on Monday night, sorry. But they're still that upper level team. Had they kicked the field goal, I think they would have won the game in overtime. But they went for it, didn't get it, and that's how they lost. At number 4, you got the Buccaneers, looking really good. The Los Angeles Rams at number 5. The Green Bay Packers at 6. Dallas Cowboys at 7. The Cincinnati Bengals at 8. I'm still putting the Chargers here at 9. I still think they're good. I just think they had an off week against a very good team. And then at number 10, slip in the Titans. Why not? You know, they go in. Sure, they lost to the Jets, but then they go in, play a super tight game with Buffalo, and win it. So I think that, you know, puts them up into that top 10. So that's it for today's show, everyone. Tune in tomorrow on Thursday for the fantasy show. That will be out at 1. And then tune in on Friday. We will be back with Dylan Corbett, hopping through some more betting lines. I believe tomorrow we will also have Jacob Montesano back with us. That is still TBD, but Jacob may be back tomorrow as well. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure to like, subscribe, whatever, and then tune in for the rest of the week to keep up with the Lucky Shots podcast. Good luck with the picks. See you later.